welcome to another Monday edition of Second City Sports. We're live in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago, along with Miss Lakeena and Sid, which is she. I am Sydney Brown. Hey, that's me. You can follow yours truly on Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, at SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You follow me at Keenan McGee on the Twitter and at Keenan McGee on the IG.
Make sure you download that Sports Zone Chicago app today, wherever you get your apps. You want to know why? Because we said so, that's why. And also, you can catch our other 5 live shows throughout the week. So if you happen to miss them, you can go back and watch them and listen to them at your own leisure. Make sure you download the Sports Zone Chicago app today. Speaking of Sports Zone Chicago, you can follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms. That's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Once again, please find Sports Zone Chicago on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. You want to catch the audio version of this podcast, Second City Sports? You can do so by subscribing to War on Anchor. We are available on all podcast platforms, including our iHeartRadio app. Make sure you type this in your search engine boxes. You ready? WARR on Anchor. Once again, at War on Anchor on all podcast platforms. And make sure you follow War Media at WARR Media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. Once again, follow War Media at WARR Media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. And thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
We are unapologetically fun, and we have very definite opinions. If you have any definite opinions due on our 2-hour extravaganza we call a Sports Talk Radio Show, you can always go to Sports Zone Chicago on Facebook or Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions or comments in the comments section. Lakeena will get them up on the screen for you. But if you decide to troll and or do something stupid, I've given Lakeena full power to give you fools to be a boot.
Bye-bye.
I love when she says that. But before we begin, we must remind you that you can also catch Sports Zone Chicago now available on Roku TV. That's right. Sports Zone Chicago is now available on Roku TV. And celebrate with the squad and get with the program. Sports Zone Chicago is on Roku TV. If you already have a Roku television, just tap on the sports folder and download Sports Zone Chicago through that avenue. If you don't have a Roku TV, it's okay. We know you have a couple of handheld streaming devices laying around, your iPhone, iPad, iTouch, your laptop, your PC, your personal computer, your Chromebook like I'm using right now. Just download that Roku TV app and access Sports Zone Chicago through that avenue. So no more excuses. So what are you waiting for? Get with the program and celebrate with the squad. Sports Zone Chicago is available on Roku TV. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, live and on demand.
All right, so we got a lot to do today here on Second City Sports, here on Sports Zone Chicago. We got Spero Dedes from CBS and Turner to talk a little NFL and NBA coming up at 1:45. We'll also, talk about the World Series that is now officially set. And also, of course, we'll do our studs and does with the NFL, and also to the Bulls. Had a tough weekend, but we'll get to that in a second. But first off, we're going to talk some NFL, and we already talked a little bit about the Bears Patriots game. If we got time, before the hour is up, we'll do that. But if you want to know our picks, ours and our girl KXRB's Chrissy Manica, go to Friday's episode. We gave you our predictions there. But first off, Sid, we're going to talk about the NFL from yesterday. Which game you want to start with? Because there were a lot of interesting results from yesterday.
Yeah, let's start off in Cincinnati, where the Cincinnati Bengals, your defending AFC champs, improved their record to 4-3, 2-1 at home after dominating the Atlanta Falcons 35-17. Joe Burrow's second career best day of his young career. The third-year quarterback out of LSU, 34-42, 481 yards and 3 touchdown passes. He also had one rushing touchdown. Joe Mixon, 17 carries, 58 yards in the score. Tyler Boyd, who I unfortunately benched yesterday, I'll explain that story later. He had 8 catches for 155 yards and a touchdown.
Yeah, I misjudged this one. Yeah, no, I warned folks. So this was the first game we picked, and I thought Atlanta was going to pull off the upsets, but of course, Cincinnati. Joe Burrow did his thing. 481 yards, had about 350 of those in the first half, with 3 touchdowns. Of course, Joe Mixon and had a rushing touchdown. So Joe Burrow as well. Jamar Chase had 130 yards and 2 of those touchdown catches from Mr. Burrow. So a nice win for Cincinnati. This could have easily been a trap game for him, but they were able to pull it off against Atlanta.
Let's go down to Big D in Dallas, Texas, where the Dallas Cowboys dominated the Detroit Lions, scoring 14 points in the fourth quarter alone to beat the Lions 24-6. Jared Goff, 21 of 26, 228 yards and 2 interceptions. Dak Prescott made his return for the Dallas Cowboys. He had 207 yards passing. Tony Pollard rushed the ball for the Cowboys 12 times for 83 yards. And for the Detroit Lions, Mr. Khalif Raymond had 5 catches for 75 yards. The Cowboys defense forced 5 turnovers in the second half alone.
Yeah, it wasn't like Detroit didn't have their chances to try to make this a game. There were a couple of times when I forgot who it was that scored that touchdown, but looked like he might have scored, and Dan Campbell didn't challenge it. And of course, when it happened after that very next play, they ended up giving the ball up and Golf threw an interception, unfortunately. So that was kind of end for that one. But yeah, I mean, look, Dak Prescott had a solid showing, 207 uh you know you know passing yards and a touchdown.
Mm-hmm.
Zeke had 2 rushing touchdowns, so things are starting to kind of get going here for Dallas. Now they did lose a couple of tough guys due to injury, so that's something to look out for as well. We'll talk about Dallas. Also, fumbles were an issue too. There was fumble. I don't know if it was like it was a lot of sweat on the ball, but there was a lot of fumbles there. But still, like you take away your Dallas and you're 5-2 because you want to stay right there in place with Philly, who are on bye this past week.
Yeah, and Jamal Williams, for the running back for the Detroit Lions, he fumbled the ball at the goal line. You could tell Dan Campbell wanted to bite off more than kneecaps when he saw that happen right in front of his eyes. So Dallas improves to 5-2. Detroit drops their record to 1-5. To Nashville, Tennessee, we go, where the Tennessee Titans defeated the Indianapolis Colts in this ugly AFC South division matchup, 19-10. Matt Ryan for the Colts, 33 at the 44, 243 yards and a touchdown. Derrick Henry for the Titans, 30 carries, 128 yards. And for the Indianapolis Colts, Paris Campbell, their star wide receiver, 10 catches for 70 yards and a score. The Colts offense sputters with 3 turnovers.
Sorry, guys. I had to clear my throat for a second. But yeah, I mean, those 3 turnovers, that stall drives for Indy. And, look, the Titans took advantage of that. And look, Matt Ryan, 2 interceptions. The second one was actually was very ugly. The one that David Long caught, that was also the pick 6 was pretty ugly too. That from Andrew Adams, that ended up being a pick 6. So that kind of did them in with the Colts. I mean, you thought the Colts were starting to kind of get these going and kind of sort of right the ship, but then they have Matt Ryan has a performance like this. So questions are abound over in Indy.
Yeah, the Titans improved their record to 4-2, while the Colts dropped their record to 3-1. To our nation's capital we go, where the Washington Commanders get an important win over the Green Bay Packers, 23-21. Taylor Heineke, who's filling in for the injured Carson Wentz, 20 of 33, 201 yards and 2 touchdowns. For Washington, Brian Robinson Jr. ran the ball 20 times for 73 yards. And their third wide receiver, Terry McLaurin, 5 catches for 73 yards and the score. The Green Bay Packers are on a 3-game losing streak. It's the first time that has happened under the Matt LaFleur regime. Also,
too, they did not convert a 3rd down for the first time since 1999, week 6 against the Broncos. So, Rodgers only 23 for 35, and that's not going to do it for you. Why wasn't the run game used more for Green Bay? I mean, only Aaron Jones didn't only combine for about 40 rushing yards. Really? Like, I don't know what the game plan was. I mean, the Washington front seven is actually pretty solid, but their run defense isn't very good. So they should have taken more advantage of that. And of course, I think Alan Lazar got hurt, so that didn't help matters with Mr. Rogers. So, there was a crazy play. Now, of course, Devondre Campbell had a pick 6 that got Green Bay back in it, but it just couldn't get things going on the offensive side. And they actually had a strange pass play. And of course, Aaron Rodgers he has to throw the ball backwards. And also, unfortunately, too, I guess he can't throw the Hail Mary like he used to. So I guess now they had to do that. But I don't know. It was just crazy. And of course, the timing of it, they use up all their timeouts, so they couldn't set up for a field goal. It just things are kind of going haywire for Green Bay. And I find it hilarious that Bears fans want to play in the Packers' misery, but look what the Bears are doing or not doing right now. So I would say folks need to kind of slow down on that.
Both teams are now 3-4 on the season. To Charlotte, North Carolina, we go next, where the Carolina Panthers pulled off an upset beating the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Tom Brady and company, 21-3. That's right, 21-3. Speaking of Mr. Brady, he was 32 of 49 for 290 yards. Deontay Foreman, the new running back for the Carolina Panthers, after Christian McCaffrey was shipped up early last week to San Francisco. He had 15 carries for 118 yards. Chuba Herbert scored a touchdown for Carolina. Mike Evans, no, not the actor from Good Times. He had 9 catches for 96 yards for Tampa Bay. He had an early drive, which set the tone for that Tampa Bay offense for the entire game. I did watch the majority of this game in its entirety live via this computer screen. Lakeena, it's got to be something. It's something going on besides Tom Brady's stuff off the field. That Tampa Bay offense has scored 21 points in the last 2 weeks. That just makes no sense. No running game. Tom Brady, how many more iPads does he have to destroy on the sidelines? And I know some of the questions are probably being brought up behind closed doors, but is Brady checked out? I don't think he is, but things are not going well for Tampa Bay right now. What's the answers? I don't know.
Yeah, the way things are going, he might be checked out. I mean, I know you can tell his frustration if you saw his presser after the game. But let's give PJ Walker some love. First start since last year, 177 yards, 2 touchdowns. And look, Carolina could easily, just say throw up their hands and say, our best player is gone and our coaches, was fired. So let's just, let's sleepwalk through. They didn't. They played hard, right from the beginning. And when it was a little slow going, but once Carolina scored that touchdown in the second quarter, that kind of woke things up, kind of saw that as a sign. Now I don't know what's going on in Tampa Bay. Only have 46 combined rushing yards. That's not going to win you a lot of games. And I don't know what else to say. I mean, their defense, while they're doing as much as they can, they only had 1 sack. They only sacked PJ Walker once. Lamonte David, where are you? Vita Vila, where are you? I mean, I know Todd Bowles, a couple weeks ago said that, well, these guys are still living off the Super Bowl win, but you really can't use that as an excuse anymore when you have injuries on your own line and all the other issues that you have. So I don't know. We might be seeing a midseason retirement from Tom Brady.
Well, Fox will show up to have him because they host the Super Bowl this year, so the sooner the better. And looking, like you said, about the Tampa Bay defense, yes, like I said, they haven't shown up at times this year, but you can't really blame them the last 2 weeks. The offense just hasn't put points on the board consistently. Like you said, you can lean on the defense so much as we know here in Chicago, but once their defense breaks, if your offense cannot catch fire, it's going to be trouble for you. Let's get one more game in before we break for the bottom of the hour. Perhaps one of the games of the day, at least from the early window. The New York Football Giants hang on to beat the Jacksonville Jaguars on the road 23-17. Trevor Lawrence, 22 of 43 for 310 yards. Travis Etienne ran the ball hard for the Jaguars 14 times for 114 yards and a score. He also had a big fumble early in the contest. Christian Kirk for the Jacksonville Jaguars had 7 catches for 96 yards.
I mean, Jacksonville had the game won. Penalties.
Yeah, I was watching this game too.
But yeah, penalties killed them, especially in that drive that lets go ahead touchdown for the Giants. I mean, they had a couple of crucial penalties and stuff. I think on the offensive side, they had a crucial holding call that kind of took back I think it was a big game. And of course, Christian Kirk didn't know where he was. He was right at the 1. If he had just stretched, maybe if he would just stretch the ball out.
Stretch.
I know how Carroll said, but yeah, I know he had 3 guys. I know he had 3 guys around, but still, he could have tried to stretch the ball out. Then maybe they could have, given them a chance. They used all their timeouts. They didn't have no timeouts left. But again, the Giants got lucky. I hate to say that. Sorry, all you Giants fans listening or watching this, but they have, and they're 6-1. I don't think anybody thought that they would be, but you take the win for New York, I guess.
Yep, like we said last week, jokingly, Lakeena, they acting like they're going to the playoffs. Well, we'll see, because you still have Dallas one more time on the road. Dak is back. You still have Philadelphia twice. Yeah. Watch out for the Washington Commanders. That's always a tough game within your division. They still had to play them twice, so still tough divisional games ahead for the New York Football Giants. But right now, the Giants are 6-1, while the Jaguars dropped to 2-5. Lakeena, we'll save the rest of the schedule on the flip side of this break. When we return, we'll review the rest of the action from Week 7 from yesterday. Some couple of shocking results from the late games. We'll get to Sunday night. We'll get a quick Monday night preview, and we'll get into the baseball playoffs as well as the World Series matchup for 2022 is now set. You're listening to the Monday edition of Second City Sports. I'm Sid. That's Lakeena. You're listening to Sports Zone Chicago.
This year, my mom got me the perfect bag for back to school.
These colorful binders help me stay organized.
These headphones are just what I need for studying.
These new sneakers are just what I need for the new year.
This jacket is a real must-have.
My parents got me the skateboard I wanted. It's pretty cool.
These scissors really come in handy in art class. These colored pencils, too.
These new socks, they can be a real lifesaver.
And I finally got my own phone to stay in touch with my mom.
Trisha's having a sleepover tonight. Can I go?
I wonder about Lucy's friends. What should I say? I know you're only 10, but one of these days a friend will offer you a drink. And alcohol at your age can lead to so many things. None of them good.
So can I go to the sleepover?
Lucy, I want you to promise me
I
something.
finished my homework.
Bigger promise. If there's any drinking, I want you to say, "No thanks, not my thing."
Mom.
I promise you, your real friends won't care. Deal?
Sure.
Really?
I promise, Mom.
They really do hear you.
Did you pack your toothbrush?
For tips on how to start the talk, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. A public service message from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration.
Hey, this is Dr. J, and I listen to Sean and Maya in the morning.
Oh, we're back.
Oh,
Welcome back to Second City Sports. I'm Sid. That's Lakeena. We're live in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter and the IG at CK80. Once again, that's CK80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
you can follow me at Keenan McGee on the Twitter and at Keenan_McGee on the IG.
And make sure you can give us a comment or a question down below in the comment section. You can always go to Sports Zone Chicago on Facebook or Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in your questions and comments in the comment section. Lakeena will get them up on the screen for you. Let's continue to review the Week 7 action from the National Football League from yesterday. This is the last of the early games. The Baltimore Ravens hang on for a 23-20 win over the AFC North Division rival Cleveland Browns. Jacoby Brissett, 22 of 27 for 258 yards for the Browns. Nick Chubb ran the ball 16 times for 91 yards in an early score. Amari Cooper, 3 catches for 74 yards. He had a late pass interference call, which kept the Browns from winning the game. And Gus Edwards, the star running back for the Baltimore Ravens, had 2 rushing touchdowns.
Yeah, it's interesting that the Browns still had a shot to win that game, and then the Ravens didn't blow it. Yay, they didn't blow a double-digit lead. Okay,
Yeah.
but yay, right? But look, I mean, Gus Edwards was great for the Ravens, especially with Jacob Dobbins not going to be gone for the next few weeks. The defense for the Ravens actually stepped up when it counted. So, that you take the win of your Baltimore, and they're in first place right now in the AFC North. If it's definitely a log jam there. So it'll be interesting to see how the rest of it evolves. But this should definitely help them confidence wise, if nothing else.
Yeah, and the Cleveland Browns have lost close games within the last few weeks outside of the loss last week, I should say, where they got blown out by the New England Patriots. Tough times if you're a Cleveland Browns fan. Now to the late games. Let's start out in the Mile High City in Denver, Colorado, where the New York Jets improved their record to 5-2, 4-0 away from New York City, defeating the Broncos 16-9. Mr. Rippon, who replaced Brett Rippon, who replaced Russell Wilson at quarterback yesterday for the Broncos, 24-46, 225 yards to the interception. Breece Hall, my guy, who's on my fantasy team, may not be any longer because he injured his ACL, according to head coach Robert Saleh yesterday. He had 4 carries, 72 yards, and a touchdown. And for Denver, Jerry Jeudy had 7 catches for 96 yards.
I thought that maybe that the Broncos would keep it close. I mean, Rippon threw down the field and with that go-ahead touchdown to Latavius Murray, but they couldn't get anything going after that. So, but the Jets, to their credit, Zach Wilson didn't make any big mistakes. Unfortunately, Breece Hall, he's done for the year. They just confirmed that it is a torn ACL, so you're gonna have to find another running back for your fantasy team, Sid. Unfortunately, but look,
I gotta go search it to the trash we call free agency.
Yeah, the kind of the waiver wire too. But so but again, nice win for the Jets. They're 5-2. They're 4-0 away right now. So you take the win. It's a costly win, but you take the win if you're the Jets. But but look, they got a nice deep squad. So hopefully they can kind of hopefully the Hall injury won't be too big of a derailment for them.
The Broncos are now 2-5 on the season. They'll play Jacksonville in London next week. Go figure that one.
I'll go figure with that one.
To Viva Las Vegas is our next stop, where the Las Vegas Raiders get a big win, their second win of the season, defeating the Houston Texans 38-20. Davis Mills for the Texans, 28-41, 302 yards and 2 touchdowns. Mr. Josh Jacobs had 20 carries for 143 yards and 3 touchdowns for the Raiders, and Devontae Adams had 8 catches for 95 yards. And not Oakland, but the Las Vegas Raiders scored 21 of their 38 points in the fourth quarter alone.
Yeah, they pulled away from the Texans late, so a nice win for them. Of course, if you got Josh Jacobs on your fantasy team, you're feeling pretty good right now. Another 3 rushing touchdowns for him, 143 yards and such. So a nice performance by him once again. It wasn't a bad game for a little bit. So you definitely take the win if you're the Raiders, and I think they definitely needed that little confidence boost after what happened in Kansas City last Monday night.
Yeah, the Raiders are 2-4 in the year, while the Texans dropped their record to 1-4-1. To Los Angeles we go, where the San Diego Chargers of Los Angeles, we call them on this show, they drop a big game at home to the Seattle Seahawks, 37-23. Justin Herbert for the Chargers, 33-51, 293 yards, 2 touchdowns. Kenneth Walker, the third for Seattle, 23 carries, 168 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Austin Eckler for the Chargers, 12 catches, 96 yards in the score. Lakeena, injuries on both sides took place yesterday. Mr. Jackson for the Chargers, it looks like he may be out for the year. He was carted off in the air. His leg was in an air cast. DK Metcalf. DK Metcalf, the sub wide receiver for Seattle, he was carted off the field yesterday, but head coach Pete Carroll said earlier today that Metcalf's knee will not require surgery, so that's good news there. So Seattle, clearly the surprise team in the league this year. They are now 4-3 in top with the Rams of the NFC West. Go figure.
Yeah, Walker leading the charge there. He became the first rookie Seahawks rookie that have 150 rushing yards and 2 rushing touchdowns in the game. So it's got to go all the way back to Kirk Warner back in 1983. No, not that Kurt Warner, the Kurt Warner that played at Penn State. And of course, he was a running back in the NFL for a few years. But yeah, I mean, I don't think everyone thought that the Seahawks were going to rebuild after trading Russell Wilson. The show so far, they're not doing that. I mean, Geno Smith, another solid showing by him. 2 touchdowns, had an interception. My Chargers. Now I might have to find another wide receiver because Mike Williams got hurt as well. But I guess the good news is that's not serious, so that's a good thing. But
I think he scored 2 yesterday as well.
Yeah, so it's going to be. I don't know what's going on with the Chargers right now. It's just I don't know. But look, good for the Seahawks. I mean, I think this stuff. If you're a Pete Carroll, you're feeling a little bit like vindicated, if you will.
So, like I said, Seattle improves that record to 4-3 on the season. The Chargers dropped their record to 4-3, and I believe they're 2 games behind this next team, the Kansas City Chiefs, and Fox's America's Game of the Week. They dominated the 49ers at the Bay, 44-23. Patrick Mahomes, 423 yards passing on 3 touchdowns. Jeff Wilson ran the ball hard for San Francisco. At least that's what the stat sheet says. 7 times for 54 yards. Juju Smith-Schuster for Kansas City, 7 catches, 124 yards in a score. But Mecole Hardman was the story, scoring 3 total touchdowns.
Chiefs Twitter is going to be insufferable for this next week, I tell you. Look, unfortunately, look, Jimmy G threw an ill-advised interception. Christian McCaffrey in his first game, just a couple of days after he was traded to the 49ers, 38 rushing yards, only 8 carries. Probably should have had more than that. Jeff Wilson, why didn't he get the ball more? So I really feel like the 49ers, should have depended on their running game a lot more. Now their run defense, didn't do anything either, late in the second half. So, I'll give y'all credit. Smith-Schuster had 124 yards. Valdez getting 111 yards. So he's on my fantasy team. Yay for me. But but like I said, Chiefs Tour is going to be insufferable, and they're 5-2. Okay, but it's just I don't know. I mean, like something's still off with the Chiefs team. I know everybody wants to say, well, see, they don't need Tyreek Hill. Okay, folks, let's. All right, you guys want to play that game, but okay.
Yep. We told you guys that back in August, and we'll see what happens with the Chiefs. Of course, the 49ers dropped their record to 3-4 in the year, 2-1 at home, while the Chiefs, like you said, Lakeena, improved their record to 5-2, 3-1 away from Arrowhead Stadium. And in the Sunday Night Football, the Miami Dolphins held on to a 16-10 win over a rebuilding Pittsburgh Steelers team. Tua Tagovailoa, 21-35, 261 yards in a touchdown. Raheem Mostert, 16 carries for 79 yards. My guy Jalen Waddle, who I replaced by bench and Tyler Boyd, boo. He had 4 catches for 88 yards. And the Dolphins sealed the win with a toe tap and interception in the end zone to seal the win at the end.
Yeah,
the Dolphins improved their record to 4-3.
Yeah, I saw this game, last night, of course, and look, it was sort of like, the Steelers kept it close. They had that great touchdown pass from Kenny Pickett, so I think that sort of like kind of kept them in it, but they just couldn't, get things going on offense, other than that. So that definitely, didn't help them. Now if you're the Dolphins, again, you really needed this win because you had a rough last few weeks. So, this is sort of like a nice sort of, kind of get right game for them. It actually turned out to be a pretty entertaining game. They honored the 1972 Dolphins team. Of course, they went undefeated. So, it was a nice showing all around. But it was a solid showing by Tua, and a nice game for the Dolphins and the Dolphins defense.
So, like I said, the Miami Dolphins 3-game losing streak is now over, and the Pittsburgh Steelers record drops to 2-5. Of course, one more game left on the Week 7 docket, and that's tonight at Foxborough Stadium. It's between the New England Patriots and the Chicago Bears. For those of you watching us here in Chicago locally, that game will be simulcasted on WGN television at 7 o'clock, in parentheses, those of you that don't have cable. And everywhere else, you can watch that game on ESPN. Of course, ESPN2 will have the Manningcast. Yay!
Yeah, your Manningcast is back again.
Yes, so I'll definitely be tuning into that tonight. Lakeena, very quickly, we did the breakdown on Friday. What do you expect from this game tonight? I know that the Patriots in most places are 7.5-point favorites. Some places had them 8. But do you expect another Bears embarrassment on national television, or do you think that the Monsters of Midway will put up at least a decent fight for a while?
I think they will. I think the latter. I think they'll definitely put up a decent fight for a while if the run game is sort of like the star here. Because remember, it's supposed to rain. I think over there in just outside Boston tonight, so that could play a factor here with the run game, especially. But give the ball to Montgomery. I hopefully Fields doesn't get hurt because we all know that
Yeah.
Patriots defense is definitely I think they're like one of the top in tackles, one of the top teams in the NFL in tackles. So that's they need to look out for that too. And Mac Jones, we'll see how he looks. Like he's going to get the start. So going to be dealing with a lot of stuff for the Patriots as well. Now they've got a good running back tandem in Ramondre Stevenson and Damian Harris. So I wouldn't be surprised if Belichick tells his guys to run the ball down the Bears' throat because we all know that the Bears' run defense is very good. So.
Right.
It'll be interesting to see if they can kind of rack up those yards. And but yeah, I think they'll keep it close. I don't think Troy was going to be on the verge of swearing. At least not early on.
Well, Matt Nagy's not there, so that's good news for starters.
Well, that might help him a little bit there. But yeah, so like I said, it'll be a close one, I think. But I think the Patriots will pull away because I know they're still right there in the thick within the AFC East. So they need to. This win and look, I know Bears fans wanted to play the whole they could be 6-0 or something or 5-1, but they can easily be 1-5 too. So I don't want anybody to play that card either. So but I think it'll be a close. But I think the Patriots will pull away late. I think.
Yeah, like you said, for the Bears to have to start off, at least what Lovey said, get off the bus running. And so, like you said, Khalil Herbert and David Montgomery must set the tone for the offense. Well, I want to see how Justin Fields adjusts, especially like you said, when and if it starts raining tonight. Can we get some play action passes? Luke Getsy, the Bears OC. Can we get some rollouts, some play action, please? Get Cole Kmet involved. Let's see if Darnell Mooney, if you can get him on a wide receiver screen or end around or something.
Right.
Can we get that be a little bit creative against this young Patriots defense? Like you said, Lakeena, that group can fly around and they can definitely make plays. No, this is not your father's Patriots for 20 years ago when Brady got his career started with them, but this is a still young and active group defensively. So the Bears will have their hands full tonight. So I'm with you. I think they'll keep it close for a while. On the flip side, for the Bears defense, like I said, I think that secondary is coming of age. It's still got some work to do, but I'm liking the improvements of Kyler Gordon and Jaquan Brisker. Eddie Jackson's having a bounce back year, but I want to see that defensive line. Can they get the pressure on the quarterback and create a couple of turnovers? If they can create more than 2 turnovers, I think they'll have a shot in winning this game. And they can sack a quarterback more than once. I think they'll win this game. They had more than 2 sacks last week, Lakeena, and they lost. So let's see if the Bears defensive front can continue the quarterback pressure tonight.
Well, that old line is actually pretty solid for the Patriots. I think they're one of the the least sacks given up this year. So I think that might be a tough task for them. They got a pretty solid O line. So we'll see what happens there. I know they got a couple of questions on that O line, but it looks like they're all going to play tonight. Isaiah Wynn and Mike Anu. So that might not be it. That shouldn't be an issue there, but we'll see. It should be a somewhat decent game nonetheless. Now, real quick, Sid, your studs and duds.
Kenneth Walker from Seattle, Patrick Mahomes from Kansas City, and Taylor Heineke from Washington. Now, with the Commanders being 3-4, I know it's too early to say this, but I think that performance may have saved Ron Rivera's job.
Might have, you never know, but yeah, that should be interesting. DeAndre Hopkins is gonna be my first stud for the Cardinals. Going all the way back to Thursday, had 103 yards. You can tell his presence was felt early on. He played peacemaker between Kyler Murray and Cliff Kingsbury, so that should definitely get a bonus stud there for him with that. Well, Baltimore, you're not in my doghouse. At least not for this weekend, but at least not this weekend anyway. You actually held on. Your defense stepped up late, so that's good. And PJ Walker for the Carolina Panthers. I mean, 2 touchdowns and if you saw his story when undrafted, of course, his former coach, both college and now pro, Matt Rule, drafted him. He gets to start and he beats Tom Brady. So that's a pretty good Sunday for PJ Walker.
Yep. So those are studs for the week. Your duds, I will start the San Francisco defense, Tampa Bay's offense, and Jacksonville as a whole.
I'll say the Chargers. What the hell happened? I know you lost a lot of those guys to injury, but come on now, really?
Yeah.
Like you let Smith, throw over you, let Kenneth Walker, the third, run all over you. But I don't know what's going on over there in Charger land. But I don't know what's going on there. Tampa as a whole, what's going on there? I don't know. I honestly don't know what's going on over there down there in Tampa, other than Tom's various personal issues. But it is what it is. And Green Bay, I don't know. It's just you can't really use Devontae Adams as an excuse anymore. Looks like something's a little bit deeper than that. Some of the wide receiving core from those young wide receiving core just isn't there for them right now. And look, I'm not gonna say that that they're gonna miss the playoffs, because you never know. I mean, they've been through this before. They might actually go into a run, but they've got Buffalo next on Sunday, I should say. Yikes! They're already a 13-point underdog. Coming off a bye, the Bills coming off a bye. Yeah, it's gonna get pretty bad before it gets better now over in Green Bay.
All right, and those are your studs and duds for Week 7 in the National Football League. You're listening to Second City Sports, the Monday edition of Sports Zone Chicago. I'm Sid, that's Lakeena. Let's close out the first hour of the show by discussing Major League Baseball. As we mentioned at the top of the show, the 22 World Series field is set. The World Series will begin on Friday, and your matchup will feature the returning American League champion Houston Astros. They defeated the Yankees by the score of 6-5 last night to complete the sweep of the Bronx Bombers in the ALCS, while the Philadelphia Phillies completed a comeback with that dramatic home run by Bryce Harper, who should be in the uniform of White Sox, but we'll get in there later. But the Philadelphia Phillies defeated the San Diego Padres to take that NLCS in 5. They beat the Padres in game 5, 4-3. I'll start with the ALCS first, Lakeena. The Yankees had their chances in the first 2 games, but they left a lot of guys on base. You thought those mistakes would get corrected once they got to Yankee Stadium, but the Astros bullpen, as we talked about all year, Lakeena, we talked about it on Friday, they found a way to get the job done. Now, last night, it was a back-and-forth affair. The Yankees jumped out to an early 3-0 lead, but the Astros fall back. The Yankees climbed right back, but they just couldn't get over the hump. The Houston Astros, in my opinion, were the story.
Yeah,
their bullpen was the story in this series.
Yeah, Aaron Judge said it best. He said, "Look, they just flat out played better than us," and that's exactly what happened. And to the Jeremy Pena was big in that series. Of course, he won ALCS MVP. So that congrats to him. He was a big reason why the Astros were where they are right now. Now they're the third team in the wild card era since '95 to sweep their way to the World Series. But if you're a Phillies fan, this could help you a little bit, because they got the Astros. I mean, you got turn the tide though, because the first two that did that, the 07 Rockies and the 2014 Royals, went on to lose the World Series. So hopefully, Astros are hoping to change that trend. Now, the last 5 ALCS appearances for the Yankees, they lost to the Astros, of course, 2 years ago. Well, 3 years ago, I should say. Then they lost to the Astros 2 years before that, and lost to the Astros 5 years before that. 2 years before that, they lost to the Tigers, and about 3 years before that, they lost to the Rangers. So the first team in MLB history to lose 5 straight LCS in their 5 straight LCS appearances. So definitely, things might be turning over there in the Bronx, but we'll get to that in a later date. But look, you guys give it to the Astros. Is they're going to be their 6th straight trip, like in the last 9 years. So and I think they're 11th overall. So this is definitely one of those. No doubt that they'll be the sentimental favorite. Of course, the Dusty Baker, because of course, what happened a couple years before that. We won't get into that, but look, they got the pitching. Well, they got the pitching to do it, and it's going to be interesting to see. And look, we'll see what happens against Philadelphia. Now, speaking of Philadelphia, I don't think anybody saw this coming with the Phillies. They got the best of the Padres. They said Bryce Harper's go-ahead home run was just the third in these playoffs in the 8th inning or later of a series-clinching game. Of course, Jeremy Pena did in the ALDS for the Astros, and Oscar Gonzalez did in the AL wildcard series, of course, in game 2 to kind of turn the tide there in that series. That's the most in the history of a single postseason. So that's pretty cool. They're headed for the 8th time, their first since '09, and it's really been their pitching. Zach Wheeler in that third game, in that 4th game, I should say, they were just stood out all over the place. And it was really their bats. Of course, Bryce Harper's bat that the tie the turn there, and Nola brothers. I think this is like the 8th time that two brothers have faced each other, and that's actually a pretty cool. Well, of course, we lost Sid for a second, but yeah. So it's very. I think this whole thing with the Phillies, I think look, they've got the pitching, they got the hitting. The bullpen can be back and forth at times, but they were able to come through when they needed to.
Yeah, we mentioned throughout the young postseason that Bryce Harper and Kyle Schwarber are swinging the bats very well. Bryce Harper is taking advantage of the pitches that's given to him. And you mentioned about the Phillies bullpen. I told you I've been questioning their bullpen over the last year or so. Right now, they've been pitching well enough to hold off their opponents, but their top 2 stars, which you'll see the first 2 games of the World Series coming up this weekend, and Zach Wheeler and Aaron Nola. They are very good. They can nibble around the strike zone, and they come after you with strikes. And so that Philadelphia starting pitcher is definitely something that you should not look over. We want to concentrate on the offense, and rightfully so. But it's their pitching, but in particular, their starting pitchers really carry this team on the back burner. Now, on the flip side, for the Astros, Jeremy Pena, remember that name at the beginning of the year, folks? He replaced Carlos Correa, and trust me, the Astros don't miss Carlos Correa. Jeremy Pena has picked it up not only with the glove, with his bat as well. That's why he was named the American League Championship Series most valuable player. So the Astros, they know when to pick up the right players for their system, and they just plug them in. There's only 2 players from their 2017 World Championship team is still remaining on their ball club. Their cheater, Jose Altuve, is one of them. But you have to give the Astros credit for retooling just about on the fly and still remaining competitors, especially after they hired Dusty Baker prior to the shortened 2020 season. So I know that your big execs don't like that the Dodgers are not in it or the Yankees are not in it, but it still should be an interesting World Series between these 2 clubs.
I think the Phillies are going to be kind of like America's team in this case, because I'm sure there's a lot of heat for Houston, even though most of those guys are not there anymore.
Yeah.
So, no doubt there's definitely going to be some folks cheering for Philadelphia. I don't know if it's going to be Aaron Nola versus Justin Verlander or Zach Wheeler versus Justin Verlander, but we really don't know. But it'll probably be a Wheeler versus Verlander. So that if one or both, if we can get them early, and get them early, I think you probably could see now. Do I think this could go, the Astros even the Phillies? No, because I think we've doubted the Phillies for too long at this point. So if I were a betting person, and thank God I'm not, I would say a slight edge to the Astros.
Yeah.
Because of the fact that you've had guys that have been there. Of course, Kyle Schwarber was there with the Cubs a few years back, and I know Nick Castellanos has been been close a couple of times too. So it was good. Could be interesting to see if the nerves get to the Phillies, I think. But other than that, I mean, look, I think they're playing with house money at this point, so I'm sure they're going to want to go all the way. And so it's going to be very interesting to see, like, if the nerves get to Philadelphia, I think.
Yeah, and give new manager Robbie Thompson credit. He replaced Joe Girardi earlier in the season, and that team took off ever since. We talk about the Mets and the Braves battling now for the NL East title. It was Philadelphia who picked up the pace, and that's why they clinched one of the top wildcard spots in the National League. I think this series, I'll give you my pick on Friday since the series will start on Friday, but I think it's going to come down to the bullpens for both these teams. As I mentioned, the Houston Astros bullpen is one of the best, if not the best, in all of baseball. Like I said, Philadelphia has surprised some people with their bullpen performance so far in these playoffs. They held off enough while the offense has given that staff, the entire staff, the support that they needed. So I think it's going to come down to the bullpens for both these teams. And the Astros can swing it too. You mentioned Altuve, Yordan Alvarez, also Kyle Tucker. Remember that name, White Sox fans from a year ago. And so he could swing a big stick as well. Of course, you have Chas McCormick. So the Houston has some boppers in that lineup too.
Well, yeah, and of course, the Phillies, there are no slouches. Of course, I mentioned Castellanos and Schwarber, Bryce Harper, of course, but Juan Gene Segura. He's been big, this World Series too. So, and then this whole series. So, all the postseason for the Phillies. So, yeah, there's a little bit depth in the Phillies as well. So, it's going to be very interesting to see, like, will it be the pitching or will it be the hitting that kind of wins it this World Series? We've seen it in the last few years that we saw what happened with Atlanta last year. It was really their hitting that kind of saved them in that series against the Astros. Then the year before that, with the shortened season, it was actually the Dodgers pitching, even though they had a couple of big hits as well, but it was really their pitch that kind of sort of healed that in that shortened season. So it can kind of go either way when it comes to the World Series, especially when you have the Astros were the favorite, but then like I said, the Phillies are playing with house money right now.
Yeah, so it's going to be. I think it's going to be an interesting 2022 series, as we say all the time. It's strong pitching and defense that's going to win out in the playoffs. Runs come at a premium. I don't see this changing anytime soon with the World Series starting on Friday. Remember, the World Series home field advantage will belong to the Astros, so they'll host games 1 and 2 on Friday and Saturday. And should games 6 and 7 take place, the Astros will host games 6 and 7 as well. So it's a 2-3-2 format. Houston gets 4 games. Philadelphia gets 3 games. So we'll see what happens there. Hour number 1 is in the books. Hour number 2 is straight ahead. As you're listening to Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago, we'll review Week 8 in college football. We'll give you the first full weekend from the action from the world of basketball, the NBA, the Bulls. Ooh, we got to digest that mess. How much we'll do it. We'll try to get through it as quickly as we can. And we have a special guest, our good friend Spero Dedes from CBS Sports and Turner Sports, to give us his take on the world of football and pro basketball. I'm Sid. That's Lakeena. You're listening to the Monday edition of Second City Sports right here on Sports Zone Chicago.
No, I don't know. I'm scared.
Do you know that you're in my lane?
No, not at all.
Are you not paying attention? Are you texting?
I was just checking in with my mom. I was telling her that I thought we'd be home by 6.
It's okay. There's enough time. Just pay attention.
I'm not even halfway through my text. There's no way. I'm not even going to look up.
My babies are in the car. You have to pay attention.
It's just supposed to be a quick text. I'm so sorry.
Hi, I'm Tom Brady, the director of DODEA. September is National Suicide Prevention and Awareness Month. The simple act of reaching out and caring for those in our communities is something we all can do. Just being there for someone you care about can be a tremendous first step in getting them access to confidential resources and support that they need. It only takes one person and one small act and 1 minute to make a difference. Let's make a difference.
Move it! Yes, sir!
Many will hear the calling. Few will earn the title. United States Marine. The few, the proud, the Marines.
Welcome back to hour number 2 of Second City Sports Monday edition. We're live in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. I'm Sid. That's Lakeena. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, at SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow me at Keenan McGee on the Twitter and at Keenan_McGee on the IG.
We have less than 60 minutes left for this extravaganza. We call it Sports Talk Radio Show. If you have any questions or comments for us, you can always go to Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in questions or comments in the comments section. Lakeena will get them up on the screen for you. Lakeena, let's kick off hour number 2 of this fabulous program on this fabulous Monday afternoon by discussing the National Basketball Association. But first, we'll get to our Chicago Bulls, the 1-2 Chicago Bulls. Lakeena, after losing a heartbreaker on Friday night in Washington, where DeMar DeRozan missed a potential game winner, the league came out later the next day, said that he got fouled, but of course there was no call that was made, so the Bulls had to take it on the chin. They really took it on the chin in their home opener on last Saturday night, losing to their division rival Cleveland Cavaliers 128-96. Donovan Mitchell for the Cavs, who they acquired via trade from Utah in the offseason, scored a game-high 32 points. Kevin Love shut down the Bulls with 15 points, including 5 or 6 from three-point range. Zach LaVine made his season debut for Chicago. He had 23 points. Nikolai Vucevic had 16 points, but only 4 rebounds. DeMar DeRozan struggled. He had 13 points before getting kicked out of the game by arguing a bunch of calls toward the end of the game. Patrick Williams, who's really called me crazy, has been a big disappointment so far through 3 games this year. He had 6 points and 3 rebounds in only 16 minutes of action. Lakeena, I'll ask you: Are you starting to jump off the Bulls bandwagon just yet? And is it time to insert Javonte Green to the starting lineup in place of Williams?
I think that's what they're going to do tonight. They haven't. Billy Donovan hasn't announced the stars yet, but I think for the better for the team, at least for right now, get Green out there in the lineup. He's actually been pretty solid. He was solid a couple of times. He did start in the preseason. Now going back to that Wizards game, I saw that game, and DeMar got fouled. And I don't know. I hate when the NBA does this after the fact that, that should have been a call or that should have been a 3 or a 2. When the East is sort of, okay, I'll take Boston and Milwaukee out of it. But when the East is such a log jam, of course, when you have the Wizards and the Bulls and the Cavs, these are the kind of things that can come back to bite you in the butt. These are kind of losses. So I don't appreciate that. And I'm over that. And I'm like DeMar said after Saturday's game, like, okay, just don't say anything. Just don't say nothing. You'll be better off. Now, as far as the Cavs game, look, the Cavs, they couldn't miss from 3-point land in the first half of that game. They were like 12 for like 18 or something like that. I mean, Kevin Love was like 5 for 6 from 3, which I don't think he's done that in years. So look, it's one of those things where you caught them a good shooting night. That happens in a lot of season NBA. First, then the Bulls, you had to come back from DC and all that. And I think DeMar was kind of wanting to take the game off. That's why he struggled from the field. Didn't tip the 3. I think he and Zach were getting hacked and weren't getting the calls either. So I'm not putting all the emphasis on that, but that played a little bit of a part. So the Cavs, like I said before, and I remember when we did our NBA roundtable. I know our buddy Big Dave Watson from CHGO Bulls asked me, like, why do you like the Cavs? Well, the Cavs got some issue with the Bulls, like the Bulls do. They don't have a true center up front, and their interior defense is very good. They can defend from the outside, but their interior defense isn't very good either. So they've got some issues too in Cleveland. So that's why I'm not a big believer in Cleveland just yet. Now, as far as this Boston game that's coming up tonight, I mean, look, hopefully Vooch has a good night. I mean, it's his birthday. Happy 32nd, Vooch. Today's his birthday. So Nikola Vucevic's birthday. So hopefully you have a nice showing tonight. And they're 3-0 right now. Boston is, and at least right now, the whole Ime Udoka drama isn't affecting them just yet. But I think we'll have a better effort from the Bulls tonight, and I think I'm not going to say they're going to win, but I think they'll definitely might surprise some folks tonight.
Yeah, just wrapping up on that Cavs game from last Saturday. Jared Allen, you discredited my guy. Lakeena, I know he's not all world. I know he was an all-star a year ago, but he's only inside presence that the Cavs have. So he did do some things on Saturday, but they really didn't need that much from him because, like you said, they had great shooting from the outside. And Darius Garland did not play on Saturday because he has a eye injury that he's going through right now. But the Bulls didn't close out defensively. They really didn't rebound with any ferocity, excuse my Walt Frazier language, but they really didn't rebound the ball well like they have, like they did the first couple of games of the year. They couldn't close out defensively. Offensively, they just lost. I know they had a little spurt in that second half, but they looked like they that entire team looked lost. And I don't know if they let that game from the Wizards from the night before affect them, but whatever it was, it all came collapsing on them. Now, I'm with you. I think they'll give a better effort tonight against Boston. Will they win? I'm not sure, but you'll expect a better effort tonight. I'll guarantee you that. Like I say, Zach LaVine looked good in his limited action. DeMar DeRozan, I think he'll get that what happened to him after the game on Saturday out of his head. I think he'll have a better game tonight. I'm looking for Vucevic and perhaps, like you said, Javonte Green get into a starting lineup. I think they'll definitely energize this team to just get off to a better start tonight.
Absolutely. So, like I said, it's going to be very interesting with this game and whatnot. So, like I said, I think they needed the rest, and I think to kind of get that whatever that bad taste that that Wizards game had out their mouths, because that should have been a win. Yes, I'm going to be bitter about that too for a while. But yeah, I think that there's they should be 2-1 right now. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. So, but yeah, I mean, look, I think that I'm looking at a better effort from the Bulls tonight, especially against the Celtics. We'll see how the Celtics, look, but it'll be very interesting to see what happens in that game. Now, what caught your eye this weekend in the NBA?
Let's start off in the Western Conference. Damian Lillard, the Portland Trail Blazers are now 2-0 after beating the Lakers yesterday afternoon, formerly known as Staples Center, and they beat the Phoenix Suns in their home opener on last Friday night. Damian Lillard, back-to-back 41-point games. He hit the go-ahead bucket yesterday against the Los Angeles Lakers. On the flip side for the Lakers, Lakeena, I'm not surprised that they're starting off this is bad. LeBron is being LeBron. Anthony Davis, even though we talked about this on our show last Friday, he took a hard fall in that loss against the Clippers last Thursday, but he did well yesterday. Call me crazy, Lakeena. I don't know if you caught any of the game yesterday, but I watched that game via my DVR this morning. Patrick Beverley, as we say, he was going to bring a defensive attitude to the Lakers. Why wasn't he guarding Damian Lillard in the fourth quarter? He had Lonnie Walker, former San Antonio Spurs, guarding him, and Damian Lillard, as expected, took advantage of him.
Of course. So I don't know what's the mindset with Darvin Ham there. I don't know what that is. Well, I'm sure we'll ask Spero when he comes on in a little bit. But yeah, it was just I caught a little bit of that game because the Steelers Dolphins game was kind of boring, so I switched over to NBA TV for that one. But it's just like I don't know what to think about it. But the Lakers were 225 for 118 for 3-point range for their first 3 games of the season in NBA history. There have been a lot of instances, I won't say the number, but of a team taking at least 103 over 3 game span. But they're only shooting over 21%. That's the lowest out of any of them. That's only ahead of this man was the 2018 Hawks. I mean, how bad that Hawks team was in 2018.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, like I said, LeBron. It's not LeBron. It's not AD. It's really the supporting cast. Westbrook, P-Bev isn't doing what he's supposed to be doing, what they signed him for. He's not being that great, defensive stopper that they thought they were going to get. Troy Brown Jr. They really don't have that much on the bench. So I don't know what else to say. I mean, I don't know. I mean, the Lakers are just. Ugh. I know people want to bring up that. The '91 Bulls started 0-3 and they won the championship. These are the 91 Bulls, folks. Let's get that out the way. But yeah, it's just trouble abound in Laker land. But on the flip side, though, the Clippers. Now the Clippers, they lost a tough one, but but they're still been pretty solid so far. I'm talking about the Clippers. I mean, it's definitely having Kawhi coming back from the bench to start the season. It's going to take them a few games to kind of get going because remember, he didn't play all of last year. I know they lost a tough one against the Suns, but, you can kind of tell. But the Suns were shooting like crazy. Speaking about crazy shooting, speaking of. But yeah, that game, Devin Booker had 35 and CP3 kicked in with only 7 points, but he had 11 assists. So that you just put on a clinic over there at the, I'm not calling it that corporate name anymore, but put me on the Staples Center, I'll say that. But yeah, just a nice showing by the Suns. But, the Clippers, they've been really solid so far, even though despite that loss.
Yeah, the Clippers, they had a back-to-back over the weekend, as you mentioned. They lost to the Suns in their home opener last night, but Kawhi looked good in his limited action. They're bringing him off the bench to at least start the year, so he can get the win underneath underneath his legs. But like I said, Phoenix on the flip side, I mentioned they lost at Portland on Friday night. They got the bad taste out of their mouth. And so they had hot shooting last night to beat the Clippers. But the Clippers, I picked them as my winner for the NBA championship this year. So they've been looking good so far. And like I said, they won the game at Sacramento on Saturday night without Kawhi Leonard. I watched some of that. They have a well-balanced roster. John Wall, who actually didn't have a bad game last night, he had about 3-3-pointers that I saw. So, and he's going to help out the Clippers team very well, especially coming off the bench. I know he started last night, but he's going to fit well into his role. You're not going to need him to carry the load like he did early in his career with the Washington Wizards when he teamed up with Bradley Beal. So you still have Paul George, the MVP candidate, and Kawhi Leonard is just getting started. So hopefully by the first of the year, Kawhi Leonard will actually be starting these games that he'll be playing at least 35 plus minutes a night.
Absolutely. And definitely one of the surprises in the NBA so far has been the Utah Jazz. I know they beat the Pelicans, but let's all remember the Pelicans and have Brendan Ingram. So I think people need to kind of just slow down on that. Look, I'm not going to say that
with his hip last night too. He was having a good game as well. I was watching something.
Yeah, he bruised his butt, basically. That's what, I know they try to class up with a hip posterior. No, he bruised his ass. That's basically what that means. But look, I mean, the Lauri Markkanen, 31 points, 12 rebounds. Kelly Olynyk had 20 points. Look, I'm not going to say that, Utah's looked good so far. I'm not going to say that this is supposed to be a rebuilding year for Utah. No Gobert, no more Donovan Mitchell. They looked really good so far. Like I said, I don't think they'll be able to keep it up, especially in a very competitive West, but look, if you're a Jazz fan, you can take a little bit of happiness there so far.
Yeah, and also too, if you're a former Bull, Lauri Markkanen, he's been having a great start to this season. 20 plus points in his last two games. Did you see the play in the fourth quarter, Lakeena, last night? Lauri Markkanen appeared to step on the end line, and Jordan Clarkson hit that shot to tie the game in regulation. If the refs would have called that, the New Orleans would have won that game. I'm not going to say going away, but they would have won a close one. So sometimes you take advantage of the breaks, whether it's the other team or the refs in this case. But Lauri Markkanen has had a nice start to the year for the Jazz. Jordan Clarkson's looked good. Colin Sexton's looked good too. I know they gave him an extension after that trade over the summer. So Utah, like you said, I don't think they're going to be in the long run, but they may give some teams some problems going forward. Now, on the flip side for New Orleans, like you said, I really like that team this year. Their challenge is going to be just like the Bulls. Can you stay out of seventh? Because assuming that we don't have a rash of injuries to big stars, that Western Conference is going to be tough. You cannot take a night off. I still like Zion Williamson if he stays healthy. Like you said, Brandon Ingram hasn't played at all this year. They have some other role players that you have right now. Alvarado, that point guard, that pesky guy. I know Matt Pack doesn't like it for CHL because of what he did to the Bulls last year and everybody else.
Yes,
he's still good. You also have CJ McCollum, who they signed to an extension this offseason that they're making a trade for him last year, and he made a difference for them last year when they're playing games before losing in the first round to the Suns. So they have some nice young talent. So don't sleep on the New Orleans Pelicans just yet. Assuming that Zion Williamson stay healthy, they're going to be better, I think, than what people think. But heaven forbid that Zion Williamson doesn't stay healthy. They can still do it without them, but it's just going to be just a little bit tougher, like a year ago.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting because the Pelicans are no longer the Hunters anymore. They're not a hunted, and no team's going to take them lightly. They kind of surprised a lot of folks, pushing the Suns to 7 last spring. So that's going to be very interesting, though. But yeah, we'll see if they can keep it up. Zion's back. Hopefully, he can stay healthy and stay out of the injury list. But hopefully, that'll be their turn to corner there in that front. Now, I want to give a little shout out to a couple of the rookies. Paolo Banchero, the rookie from Orlando, his first 3 games. He's had, he scored 27, 20, and 23, and he's the first teenager to score 20 plus points in each of his first 3 games in NBA history. So that's a pretty cool moment for them. Now, unfortunately, the Magic, they're 0-3, but that's a but I think he kind of figured that this was going to be kind of like a thing here. But I like I said, I like his game. He's shooting very well from the 3 arc, and look, it'll get better, Orlando fans. I promise. Also, to Ben Mathurin from Arizona, rookie from Arizona. The rookie from Arizona, of course, he's now with the Pacers. He's dropped back-to-back 20-point performances, come out the bench in both those first games. He joins Reggie Miller he did for four straight times in '87, his first year, as the only rookies from the Pacers to score 20 plus points consecutive games off the bench. So if you're Rick Carlisle, I think you should probably start him. Just saying.
Yeah.
but I mean, I think the Pacers are like 2-1 right now. I think the Pacers are. I'm not. Yeah. So nice start for the Pacers and such. So yeah. So it's they're 1-2 now at the Pacers.
1-2. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
So yeah. No. So it's fine because I like it's such a log jam right now. City with only 3 games. We're on the log jam here. But can I get a mulligan again on the Sixers, please? Pretty please with spin on the top.
Yeah, 0-3 on the year, but they'll turn around. They have too much talent to not turn around. Like I said, Doc Rivers perhaps is on his legs as a head coach of that team. Did watch some of that game on Saturday before the Bulls. Of course, Philadelphia hosted San Antonio. It shouldn't have been too much of a surprise that San Antonio went in there and beat them the way they did.
Yeah, they did. It just, they like I said, the 3-point was really like the thing. They were 16 for 38 from 3, and but they've got some good players. I know that even Pop admitted that he's only coaching for the check now, so he kind of played that. But they got some pretty solid talent. They got Keldon Johnson, Jeremy Shochin, Trey Jones, among others. I mean, they've got young guys playing right now. Now, will it be up there for the Western Conference? Maybe not, but they'll probably be like playing for like maybe the play-in, I guess. But the Sixers, hopefully they can turn around quick because there are people already. I think the Phillies are in the World Series, so they're not. They're a little too distracted. But after that, it's just gonna be brutal if they don't get together quick.
Yeah, also, too, I want to go back, staying with the Eastern Conference, I want to go back to the Detroit Pistons. They're now 1-2 on the year. I did get a chance to watch the majority of that game at the Knicks on last Friday. They got blown out, but Jalen Ivey, their rookie draft pick out of Purdue, he looks good.
Oh, I love him.
Him and Kate Cunningham is going to be a nice backcourt. They just got to straighten out their front court. I know they got Bojan Bogdanovic in that trade from Utah this offseason, but they got to bolster up their front line even more. And I know they lost a close one to the Pacers on the road last Saturday night. But like we said, Detroit, I don't think they're going anywhere, but I think they're building something special over there. So maybe one more year, I think they'll be a serious contender for a playoff spot, but not this year. So they still rebuilding. So Detroit, they still got a ways to go at beating Orlando last Wednesday opening night. Also, too, the Milwaukee Bucks, they dominated the Houston Rockets in that whole opener, 125-109. So they built off their big win on the road at Philadelphia last Thursday. So they're off to a nice start. What about the Dallas Mavericks, Lakeena? They forgot about their loss at Phoenix. They dominated Memphis last Saturday night.
Yeah, I did not see that coming, but I mean, look, Dallas has been one of those teams where they could kind of thought that maybe they could kind of get a little bit. They were only a couple of games from going to the finals. They lost that tough one against the Suns, but they bounced back. They just hammered the Grizzlies. Did not see that coming at all. But look, of course, Luka, of course, he's gonna be one of the favorites for MVP. No doubt about that. But they had 25 off the bench from Christian Wood. Of course, they got that from that trade. So I'm looking forward to seeing what happens there. But I feel like I think that the Mavs can be like right there in the thick of it for that Western Conference. It's gonna be a slugfest for that Western Conference, Sid.
Yeah, we talked about over the summer Dallas losing Jalen Brunson. He's now the starting point guard of the New York Knicks. But now you still have Spencer Dinwiddie in the mix. Christian Wood is going to be a nice addition for that Dallas Mavericks team. The question is, who's going to help out Luka Doncic on a regular basis? Who's going to take that scoring load off of Luka? And that was the question that we had about the Dallas Mavericks going through their playoff run last year as they lost to the Golden State in the Western Conference Finals. Like I said, they had some nice pieces, but who's consistently going to step up and take out that that scoring load off of Luka Doncic's hands? Yes, Tim Hardaway Jr. is back, but who's going to be that guy to say, hey, Luka, I'm going to help you out scoring-wise?
Yeah, they got to do it consistently, though. That was a problem last year in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody was able to help Luka, so it'll be interesting to see what happens there. Now, I want to give a shout out, of course, to Steph Curry. He has his 100th career regular season game with 30 points or less, and including 7 3-pointers in that win against the Kings. That's more than double anyone else in NBA history. Of course, James Harden is next behind him with only 42. So get that there. But nice bounce back game for the Kings. They lost a tough one to the Nuggets, but look, the Kings kind of came close for a little bit too.
Yeah, I know the new head coach Mike Brown has those guys motivated, so we'll see if they can even sniff a playing a spot. So, like I said, they lost a couple of they don't let that final score fool you, but they almost pulled off a win against the Clippers. They lost a total on opening night against the Blazers last week. Their final score last night, they could fool you, but they could out warrior the Warriors defensively. So, they could put up some points, but defensively, they still have some work to do. I know they still have some guys like Domantas Sabonis, the former Indiana Pacer. They got in the trade at the trade deadline in exchange for Tyrese Halliburton. You still have De'Aaron Fox and Harrison Barnes. Still not a bad roster, but they still have long ways to go. Now, Lakeena, speaking of the different Nuggets, I did watch that game on Saturday night in its entirety via this computer screen against OKC. We all know OKC is not going anywhere. They're still rebuilding. But Nikola Jokic had another triple-double. Jamal Murray looks good from his torn ACL from his season. He missed all of last season. And Jeff Green's still hanging around. I remember when he got drafted back some years ago. And they still has Michael Porter Jr., who looked good in limited action on Saturday. So if Denver can stay healthy, I think they'll be another challenging team as far as title contenders are concerned. The Western Conference, that West is stacked, as we said before. We're going to keep saying it as the year goes on.
Yeah, that was that 77th career triple double for Jokic, second most among centers, only trailing Wilt with 78. So there's definitely Jokic will definitely will pass that, barring injuries. But yeah, I think Denver's still trying to get it going. Look, Jamal Murray did not play off last season, so he's starting to kind of get his groove back. And Michael Porter Jr. I mean, look, I think health's going to be an issue here. There's always been an issue for the Nuggets team the last couple of years. So if all those guys can stay healthy, Aaron Gordon, Porter Jr., Murray, I mean, they got a couple of solid guys off the bench. If they all can stay healthy, they can be right up there with the Warriors and the Clippers and the Mavs and them. So like I said, we'll ask Spero about that in a little bit. But yeah, look, it's good. Like I said, it's going to be a log jam and a slugfest. So it'll be depend on who left standing in the end.
You're listening to Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. We're live in living color on the Monday edition. We're talking about the Bulls and the NBA. I'm Sid. That's Lakeena here with you. Wrapping up the NBA, since we have a few minutes left, Lakeena, I want to get your thoughts on, even though it's still very early in the season, not completely a full week that has been completed. Yeah, I want to ask you about these two teams in the Eastern Conference. One of them, both of them actually had the chance to check out on opening night, the Atlanta Hawks and the Brooklyn Nets.
Yeah, I saw a little bit of that game they had. Atlanta had against Charlotte, of course. Unfortunately, they lost that game. Now, for me, I think, look, Atlanta, they're one of those teams where you just don't know. I mean, we need somebody there to kind of, Trae Young is still doing his thing. They got DeJounte Murray from that trade and such. Clint Capella is still around, and of course, DeAndre Hunter. So. And John Collins, I mean, we'll see if he can kind of keep up. Kind of came out of nowhere a couple of years ago. He's kind of fallen off a little bit. So for me, I think the Hawks, can they be up there? But I think they might be right there like they were last year playing for the play-in. I think that's probably where they're going to be. But yeah, and I hate saying that, but yeah, I just, I know they got the Holiday brothers now. They got Justin Holiday and Aaron Holiday. I don't think they're related, but I don't know. I mean, it's going to be very interesting. I know Mike Woodson. I think him, being there, I think that helps a little bit because he got a little bit of a experience. I guess his experience in the playoffs, but
Nate McMillan.
Nate McMillan. I should say. I don't know why I got his name from, but yeah, Nate.
You think about them bald heads now?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, they both got bald heads, so I think that kind of threw me off. But he's doing good things over Indiana too. IU, by the way, is a lot of Monroe. But yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see if Nate McMillan kind of get things going there for Atlanta because I feel like they're kind of been like inconsistent so far.
Yeah, I didn't watch the game yesterday, but I saw that game on Friday against Orlando. They did look good. Trae Young, we know what he brings to the table every night. DeJounte Murray is going to help him out. They're going to be one of the best exciting young backcourts to watch in the NBA. But like you said, the rest of that team, who's going to help them out as quote unquote being that third guy. They're supposed to be built like the poor man's Golden State Warriors. I'm not sure that's ever going to happen, but they could be in the playing situation again like they were a year ago. But we'll see what happens. But the other team I asked you about is the Brooklyn Nets. I know they got destroyed the opening night last week against the New Orleans Pelicans, but they did bounce back with a nice victory on Friday at Charlotte, 124-112. Kevin Durant does look good so far. So does Kyrie. But
Right.
maybe this is the pessimist in me. When they go through a tough stretch, who's going to punk out? Seriously, because we all know the story what happened this summer with KD in management and all that, and Kyrie being brought back on this option. But when and if this team goes to a tough stretch, who's going to bite?
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if the guys can step up. We know Nick Claxton's still there. Patty Mills is still actually playing pretty well. So Ben Simmons, I should say, is starting to kind of get it going a little bit. But I don't know. Like I said, Brooklyn. I mean, look, if they have a tough stretch, they got a couple of tough games coming up this week. We'll get to see the schedule in a second. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see if they struggle, if the team struggles, who's gonna bite first? Who's gonna say, "Hey, I want to get out of here," or "Hey, this team, sucks." But we'll see what happens. I mean, still very early. They've only played 2 games. Brooklyn has, so still very early. But that's a good question to ask because they got a tough one tonight. And speaking of, they got a tough one tonight. Against Memphis at 7:00.
Yeah, and running down to the rest of the schedule for tonight and for this week from the world of the NBA. Of course, you have the Bulls and the Celtics tonight at 7 from the United Center. Pacers at 76ers at 6:00. These are all Chicago time starts. The Raptors at the Heat, 2 teams that are struggling out the gate, both at 1 and 2 in the year. They play tonight at 6:30. Orlando at New York to take on the Knicks at 6:30 p.m. That's the first game on NBA TV as part of that doubleheader. You mentioned the Nets at Grizzlies tonight at 7. Also at 7:00, the Utah Jazz 3-0 at the 0-3 Houston Rockets. Of course, also at the same time at 7:00, San Antonio at Minnesota. The Timberwolves out to a 2-1 start. And, of course, the second half of the NBA TV doubleheader tonight at 9:00, Denver at Portland. Denver 2-1, Trailblazers 3-0.
Should be an interesting one there. Should be a good one here tomorrow. You got Detroit and Washington. That should be a fun one at 6:00. The first game of the TNT doubleheader, you got Dallas and the Pelicans. We'll see if Brendan Ingram will be back for that game, and Zion too. I know they're both struggling with injuries right now. Clippers and OKC at 7, and Golden State and Phoenix. That should be a fun one there. That's the second game of that TNT Tuesday night doubleheader.
Yeah, who's going to be first one to score 130 points?
Yeah, first to that wins.
Your schedule for Wednesday: the Pacers and the Bulls will do better at the United Center at 7:00. The Magic at Cavaliers at 6:00. Followed by the Hawks and the Pistons, the Hornets at the Knicks at 6:30, Philadelphia at Toronto at 6:30. The first game of the ESPN doubleheader for Wednesday will be Brooklyn at Milwaukee. Perhaps another playoff preview. We shall see. At 7:00, the Spurs at Minnesota. At 8:00 is Houston at Utah. At 9:00, the second half of that Wednesday night doubleheader on ESPN, your Los Angeles Lakers at the Denver Nuggets. And, of course, the Wednesday night schedule wraps up with Miami at Portland. That should be a fun one.
That should. Very entertaining. And we run out the week for Thursday. You got first game of the NBA TV doubleheader at 6:30. You got Dallas and Brooklyn. Then you got Clippers and OKC. You got the Heat and the Warriors. That's the second game of that NBA TV doubleheader. And should be a good one here. You got Memphis and Sacramento.
All right, so that's your schedule for this upcoming week in the National Basketball Association. Lakeena, we got to break, regroup. We got to come back and finish strong. We will. You know how we do it here on Second City Sports. When we return, we'll review some of the key games from Week 8 in college football. And we'll have good friend of the show from CBS Sports and Turner Sports, Mr. Spero Dedes, to wrap up the show talking NFL and NBA. I'm Sid. That's Lakeena. You're listening to the Monday edition of Second City Sports. We're live and live in color right here on Sports Zone Chicago.
This year, my mom got me the perfect bag for back to school.
These colorful binders help me stay organized.
These headphones are just what I need for studying.
These new sneakers are just what I need for the new year.
This jacket is a real must-have.
My parents got me the skateboard I wanted. It's pretty cool.
These scissors really come in handy in art class. These colored pencils, too.
These new socks, they can be a real lifesaver.
And I finally got my own phone to stay in touch with my mom.
Trisha's having a sleepover tonight. Can I go?
I wonder about Lucy's friends. What should I say? I know you're only 10, but one of these days a friend will offer you a drink. And alcohol at your age can lead to so many things. None of them good.
So can I go to the sleepover?
Lucy, I want you to promise me
I
something.
finished my homework.
Bigger promise. If there's any drinking, I want you to say, "No thanks, not my thing."
Mom.
I promise you. Your real friends won't care. Deal?
Sure.
Really?
I promise, Mom.
They really do hear you.
Did you pack your toothbrush?
For tips on how to start the talk, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. A public service message from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration.
Hey, this is Dr. J, and I listen to Sean and Maya in the morning.
Welcome back to Second City Sports, the Monday edition. We're live in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. I'm Sid. That's Lakeena. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80. You can follow Keena McGee on the Twitter at Keena McGee, once again at KENA.
Here I am. There I am.
Okay.
Yeah.
We couldn't hear you for a second.
Sorry about that. You follow me at Keena McGee on the Twitter and at Keena McGee on the IG.
Okay, we have good friend of the show from CBS and Turner Sports, Mr. Spero Dedes, coming up. In the meantime, in the between time, we'll review some of the key games from the world of college football from Week 8. Lakeena, I want to start our local team. The Final Line I had the week out there resume play coming up. This upcoming Saturday, rather. But I want to get to a couple of key games here. We'll start off in South Carolina. Number 5 Clemson gets by number 14 Syracuse, 27-21. Syracuse had that big 21-10 halftime lead. But as I suspected, which actually happened, Syracuse couldn't get anything going in the second half. They had a bunch of penalties. Clemson fought their way back into the game and eventually took over and won by 6.
Yeah, DJ Olongi didn't have a good showing, had 2 interceptions, but Kay Klubnik, I should say, came in, kind of sparked that offense for Clemson. And look, and also the defense had a couple of key turnovers too, and a key stop play. So that look, I know some people say that Clemson benefited from some calls, but look,
yes, they did,
and they probably did. But you know what though? Look, it take advantage, but I think Syracuse just wasn't ready for kind of like the onslaught that was, that crowd and with the Tigers.
Okay, in Pac-12 action, number 10 Oregon outshoots UCLA. The number 9 ranked team in the country, 45-30. Bo Nix for Oregon, 22-28, 283 yards and 5 touchdown passes. And the stud wide receiver Troy Franklin for the Oregon Ducks, 8 catches, 132 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, didn't see this coming from Oregon. Oregon kind of kept the offense for UCLA at bay. Zach Charbonnet did have 151 rushing yards and a touchdown, but couldn't really get things going there too. And they had a couple of key turnovers. We'll talk about the Oregon defense. I mean, Bo Nix had 5 touchdowns. He has like 3 of these already. He joins CJ Stroud from Ohio State, Will Rogers from Mississippi State, and Drake May from North Carolina as the only FBS QBs in multiple games with 5 TD passes this year. He didn't have any when he was at Auburn, so I guess a change in scenery probably definitely helped on there. But and also to a big win for Oregon. They're 4-0 in conference play.
In Big Ten play, number 2, Ohio State didn't have any problems with Iowa. They destroyed the Hawkeyes in the horseshoe, 54-10. Speaking of CJ Stroud, he was 20 of 30 for 286 yards and 4 touchdowns. Mr. Henderson for OSU, Trevion Henderson, had 11 carries for 38 yards, but it didn't matter. It was Julian Fleming who had 2 big catches for 105 yards and a score.
Yeah, absolutely. No trouble there for Ohio State. Tennessee, no trouble with Tennessee Martin. And Alabama dominated Mississippi State 30-6. Bryce Young had 249 passing yards and 2 touchdowns. The defense, didn't make the Bulldogs a factor. So I guess you took the whatever the over-under was. You took the over. You actually did pretty well.
And speaking of Tennessee, the SEC counterparts to Alabama, they had no problem with UT Martin, 65-24 in Knoxville. Mr. Sampson, the star running back for Tennessee, Dylan Sampson to be exact, 13 carries, 62 yards in the score. Jalen Hyatt had 7 catches, 174 yards, and 2 receiving touchdowns.
No problem there for them. Going back to the SEC, stay with the SEC, I should say. LSU just hammered once unbeaten the Ole Miss Rebels, giving them their first loss of the season, 45-20. Jaden Daniels had 248 yards and 2 touchdown passes, but also ran for 121 yards and 3 touchdowns. So he was definitely a one-man wrecking crew there. The Rebels defense just couldn't stop him.
Yep, and in Big 12 action, number 11 Oklahoma State, the Cowboys outdueled the number 20 ranked team in the country, the Texas Longhorns, 41-34. For OK State, Spencer Sanders, 34-57, 391 yards and 2 touchdowns. And Mr. Bryson Green, 5 catches, 133 yards and 1 score.
Yeah, I had an eye on this game too once the Bama Mississippi State game was a little bit of a blowout. But yeah, a solid showing by Sanders, and also a solid showing by the Cowboys defense, making those stops late for them against Texas. So definitely a bounce back win for OK State.
Going back to Big Ten, I was disappointed by this team in the Saturday night primetime game on ABC. Number 16 Penn State, they defeated Minnesota Golden Gophers 45-17 in Happy Valley. For Penn State, Mr. Sean Clifford, 23 of 31, 95 yards and 4 touchdowns, while Theo Johnson had 5 catches, 75 yards in the score.
Yeah, that was a very exciting showing there. But yeah, a nice win for them, and I feel like this could be kind of like the thing. They could be right there. Think of it for the conference. Title game.
No one's talking about them right now.
Yeah, but I'm sure they prefer that actually. So they prefer that. So yeah, don't talk about them anymore. But they're okay. Penn State's fine. They're fine. Ohio State, Michigan. They still got to play them still. Well, I mean, they already lost to Michigan, but they still got to play Ohio State. So. But they're still right there to think of it though in the Big Ten Big Ten East, I should say. Penn State is, but yeah, Minnesota's been very disappointing this year. You thought that maybe with Tanner Morgan, a couple other guys back, but so far not good for your buddy PJ Fleck and the Golden Gophers.
They still have a lot of work to do. Minnesota's 4-3, 1-3 in the Big Ten. Penn State is 6-1 overall, 3-1 in Big Ten play. Number 21 Cincinnati, the Bearcats get by SMU, Southern Methodist University. For those of you scoring at home, 29-27 on the road. Ben Bryant for the Bearcats, 18 of 35 for 200 yards. Even Charles McClellan, the big running back, 16 carries, 129 yards in the score. And Mr. Jaden Thompson for the Bearcats, 4 catches for 69 yards. This was clearly a struggle for Cincinnati in that second half, but they squeaked out a 2-point victory. They scored 20 of their 29 points in the first half.
Yeah, they scored at the best. Scored 13 points. Kept it close, but they actually tried to tie it. But it's going to be very interesting to see for the thing with that also. But look, I think so far they've been hanging on pretty well. So a nice showing for the Bearcats so far. They're 6-1.
Back to Big 12 action. Baylor gets by Kansas 35-23. Baylor improves that record to 4-3 overall, 2-2 in Big 12 play. Kansas, after that surprise to start, they're now 5-3 on the year, 2-3 in Big 12 play. And for Baylor, Mr. Richard Reese had 31 carries for 186 yards and 2 touchdowns. The only shining star for KU was Quentin Sinker, their star wide receiver. 4 catches with 66 yards in the score.
Yeah, they missed Jalen Daniels, no doubt, and that definitely showed these last couple of weeks. So yeah, Baylor, a nice showing there. Like I said, still in particular for the Big 12. So don't count out the Bears just yet.
Yeah, in ACC play, I know we said coming into year this conference could be the one that's struggling this year out of the Power 5 conference. The Duke Blue Devils improved their record to 5-3 after dominating the University of Miami, 45-21. Miami did not look good at all, Lakeena. They gave up 21 points in the fourth quarter, and they gave up 17 right before halftime. This was just ugly from the start.
And they lost a couple of guys too. They lost Van Slag and a couple, and like one of their running backs to injury. So yeah, not looking good so far from Mario Cristobal. But yeah, I'm sure they'll figure it out. It just won't be for this year.
Locally in college football, Northern Illinois out of the MAC, they dropped a close one to Ohio University, 24-17. For Ohio, Curtis Roke, 14 of 26 for 200 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, tough loss for the Huskies, no doubt. But yeah, but you got to be feeling pretty good if you're a Huskies fan. The future looks bright for them now. Northwestern lost to Maryland. They kept it close for a little bit too, but it was Roman Hemby for who had, I think it was a 70-yard rushing touchdown. That was a go-ahead touchdown. He had 179 yards and 3 TDs, so the Wildcats couldn't stop them.
Yep, and we'll get this score out of the way. Notre Dame defeated UNLV in South Bend 44-21. Notre Dame came out the box scoring 23 first quarter points. And for their star quarterback, Mr. Drew Pine, 14-28 for 205 yards and 2 touchdowns. While their big star tight end, Mr. Michael Meyer, 6 catches for 115 yards and a touchdown.
I know a lot of Irish fans were a little bit miffed because they couldn't watch this game. They had to watch it on streaming on Peacock. But look at a nice little get right game for Notre Dame. So your record's free, you'll take that. So, but our wonderful guest is here. So please introduce him, Sid. You're better at this than I am.
You're listening to Second City Sports, the Monday edition, live in 11 color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. I'm Sid. That's Lakeena. As Lakeena said, it's time to bring on our special guest for today's program. He's a good friend of ours. He calls games for CBS Sports, the NFL, and college football, along with the NBA for Turner Sports and NBA TV. He's our good friend, Mr. Spero Dedes. Sir, welcome back to the program. How are you?
Hi, Sydney. Hi, Lakeena. How you guys doing?
We're doing great. How about yourself?
Good. I have to apologize. I do not have a camera on this device. I'm not purposely hiding from you guys, but I have to upgrade my computer situation at home.
No, it's fine. It's fine. But look, you're here, so that's all that matters. So
yes,
we're into almost to the midway point of the NFL. What team or player has impressed you so far?
Oh boy. Well, I can tell you, there's a bunch of teams that have been disappointing for sure. We were just having this conversation with our crew, just hearing this Matt Ryan news with Indianapolis that he's going to be benched at the quarterback position. Tampa Bay, I think, is up there in terms of teams that have disappointed. It's just it's been one of those crazy years. And the one thing I will say, guys, is that the NFL, more than any other sport, it seems like there's such parity in the NFL. And, you get into these years and, certainly Buffalo and Kansas City teams that we expected to contend, certainly in the AFC, have been there. But there have been so many teams now, I think, that have kind of stepped into that championship conversation that maybe could contend. I like Baltimore. I think Cincinnati, after a rough start, is starting to put some things together. Jacksonville was one of the surprise teams. I think if you asked me after week 2 or week 3, Jacksonville was maybe the surprise team in the league. Chargers have been a disappointment. We all expected the AFC West to be this kind of wild shootout. And at this point, it looks like a one-team deal, which I think is disappointing for a lot of fans in those regions of the country. I'd say the biggest surprise for me probably, guys, is how good Philly is. And, Philadelphia, they're a legit championship contender. We had them week 2, I want to say, or week 3, their game against Jacksonville, and seeing how sound that defense was really eye-opening. And Jalen Hurts has been a big part of their story. His ascension, year 2 as a full-time starter. And I think you have to probably put the Giants up there as well. Not probably, for sure. And they may be even a bigger surprise than the Eagles are, just in terms of what the expectations were for Brian Daboll's first year. So I think now that I'm kind of talking my way through this answer, I'd probably put the Giants 1 and Philly 2 in terms of where we are here at this point, 6-7 weeks into the year.
Staying with the AFC, Spero, you mentioned the Kansas City Chiefs. We saw what they did to the 49ers out by the Bay yesterday. And me and Lakeena, we talked about this during the preseason, that they're going to miss Tyreek Hill, but some people think it's going to be easy like it was last year, minus their exit from the AFC Championship game against the Bengals last year. But I just get this feeling that something else is going to happen to them between now and the end of the season. We know last year that the defense carried them a good part of the year while the offense struggled. But I think it's going to be more just them missing Tyreek Hill this year. And that big contract that they signed Patrick Mahomes to last year, we starting to see his dividends already. They're not going to be able to rebuild their roster like they once did before they signed Mr. Mahomes to that big contract. What do you think about Kansas City this year? Do you still put them up there with Buffalo, even though Buffalo beat them last week? Or do you still have them up there as AFC contenders? Or do you see this spiraling out come playoff time?
I don't think there's any question that this is a legitimate championship contender. I think they answered a huge question mark with replacing Tyreek Hill. I mean, that was certainly at the top of everyone's list of questions for this team. I think they've put those questions to bed, at least for the moment, guys. Very impressive with what they did yesterday, certainly against the San Francisco team that was buoyed by the Christian McCaffrey acquisition. But I think the one thing we have to keep in mind with a team like Kansas City, and any team that is a proud championship pedigree type team, and I think Kansas City certainly fits in that bill, is that when they're motivated, it really adds something to their psyche, their emotion level, which is so huge in the NFL, maybe more than any other sport. And this was a motivated team. Obviously got to the NFL mountaintop a couple of years ago, took one on the chin last year with the way things ended for them in the postseason. And so I think when you factor in all the talent that they have, maybe the best quarterback in the league, as good a head coach that we have in the league in terms of play calling and everything Andy Reid represents, when you add the motivation factor into the mix with that kind of a talent pool, even without Tyreek Hill, I think it's a very dangerous proposition for the rest of the league. And so this is not a perfect roster by any stretch. There's still some question marks, but if I'm a betting man, I think Kansas City is going to be there at the end. And I'm not going out on a limb by saying I think it could very well come down to them in Buffalo in the AFC.
Going to the NFC for a second, Spero. What about Tampa Bay? Do you think they can kind of get right the ship too, with all the, Tom Brady's personal issues and the injuries in the O-line and the defense not being like the defense they were when they won a Super Bowl a couple years ago? Is it the coaching with Todd Bowles? What do you think is wrong with Tampa?
Boy, it's not an easy question to answer. I think it's basically all of the above. I think it's important to point out, Lakeena, that you think even their Super Bowl championship winning season, I mean, right? They didn't get off to a good start. I mean, that was a team that had to really figure things out on the fly. And once they did turn it around, obviously they made all the right decisions and made all the big plays and ended up winning a Super Bowl, which was stunning to watch in Brady's first year in that city and with that franchise that had been down for so long. But anyone who has watched this team this year, it's just a completely different feel. Something feels amiss with that team. Tom Brady, all the off the field headlines certainly is not helping any. When you have your quarterback missing 11, 12 days of training camp to tend to personal matters, that was maybe the first red flag, I think, for a lot of people around the league. We didn't really know what the situation was. Everyone just assumed, this is probably just part of his deal when he agreed to come out of retirement and come back. Then lo and behold, we find out that, everything in his personal life that is falling apart, which is very unfortunate. And so you have to ask yourself, how engaged is Tom Brady at this point? And it's crazy to ask that question of a guy who's maybe probably the best quarterback, maybe the best player overall that we've ever had in this league. But anyone who's going through what he's going through can tell you that it is really hard to focus on your job 24/7 the way you need to be, especially at that position. I think it starts right there. You have to ask questions about this coaching staff. And Todd Bowles, who I think has been just a terrific defensive coach in his career. He's had a couple of good seasons as a head coach. Unfortunately, now he's going to come under the microscope. Is he part of the problem, or is he part of the solution? And how he navigates this team through these next few weeks, I think we'll know here in the next 2 to 3 weeks if Tampa Bay is going to turn this thing around or if their season is going to continue to spiral out of control. Because right now, at this moment in time, there's nothing that we can see tangibly that leads you to think that this team is going to end up in the playoffs. I just think there's too many good teams in the league. The one saving grace that they have is that division is just not very good. And as they sit right now, all that said, by the way, Tampa Bay is tied for first place in that NFC South division, which is just insane to say. But if I'm a Bucs fan right now, boy, it's hard to feel confident about anything at the moment.
Spero Dedes from CBS and Turner Sports is hanging out with us on Second City Sports. We're live in the living color, the Monday edition, right here on Sports Zone Chicago. I'm Sid. That's Lakeena. Spero, speaking of another legendary quarterback, Aaron Rodgers with the Green Bay Packers, they take it on the chin in our nation's capital yesterday against the Commanders. They're now 3-4 on the season. Of course, this is Matt LaFleur's first 3-game losing streak as a head coach of the Packers. Do you see Green Bay turn their season around, or do you give the division right now to the NFC North division right now to the Minnesota Vikings?
Well, look, I'm not going to be the person who bets against Aaron Rodgers. I just think he's been too great in his career. But there is a lot of newness with this roster, guys, and he has a wide receiving core that is very young and very inexperienced. He had Mr. Adams there for a number of years, and when you have that familiarity, you have confidence that you can overcome slow starts. But now they've got to do it with a lot of newness and a lot of first-year players that don't have the track record or the pedigree in that system. And now, suddenly you've lost 3 games in a row. And this is where you start to see championship teams separate from the pack. Psychologically, do they have what it takes to turn things around? Or does the season continue to spiral out of control? And I think it's interesting. Aaron Rodgers early in the year was very tough with what he was kind of saying about his teammates publicly to the media. He was a little harsh with his comments. Hey, the young guys have to figure it out. Now I think, especially after the game yesterday, you hear Aaron Rodgers saying, well, I don't worry about this team. So it's almost like he's realized, what, I got to put the kid gloves on a little bit and be a little bit softer with my public criticisms of some of these young guys. I think he figured out that harshness and that candidness to the media maybe is not the right way to handle this. And so how he navigates these next couple of weeks with his coaching staff is going to be very, very interesting to watch.
What's wrong with the Chargers? I know you did the preseason games for them for a few years, but with all the injuries, it looks like Mike Williams is going to be gone for a little bit. What's wrong with the Chargers? I'm starting to kind of lose faith in them.
Yeah, it's been an unfortunate set of circumstances, and it's kind of eerily similar, guys, to a couple of years ago with Anthony Lynn. You think of the expectations, that team, I think it was his second to last year before he was fired. Chargers came into that year as stacked as any team in the AFC in terms of some of the offseason moves that they had. There was a feeling that the Chargers were finally ready to turn the corner, and then they just were racked by injuries. They had a horrific kicking season. Their kickers getting hurt, missing a bunch of potential game-winning kicks that really derailed their season. And before you knew it, the bottom fell out, and Anthony Lynn was on his way out. This certainly is a different feeling. I think this roster was even more stacked with some of the offseason moves that they made. There was a confidence level with Brandon Staley, which I think still exists. But, now suddenly Brandon Staley is having to answer some tough questions. So this thing with J.C. Jackson yesterday, really unfortunate. They just have been snake bit with the injuries. To miss a guy like Keenan Allen the first chunk of the season has been a killer for that offense. The biggest disappointment for me with the Chargers guys is their defense. You add Khalil Mack, you add J.C. Jackson to what they already had. You just expected this defense to have the depth to overcome at least a few injuries to key players. You lose Joey Bosa, devastating. Now the injuries start to pile up with just a number of their key players, and it gets to a point where it's too much to overcome for a team. And unfortunately for the Chargers, this is nothing new for them. This is something they've experienced multiple times, even over just the last 5 or 6 years.
Let's go to the Pacific Northwest and talk about the Seattle Seahawks. Spero, does Pete Carroll look like a genius of what? Geno Smith? Most people didn't expect anything from him this year. Everybody expected Drew Lock to be the starting quarterback. Of course, you mentioned the Chargers. Seattle beat them handily yesterday on the road. Can the Seahawks keep this up and perhaps sneak into the playoffs?
Yeah, you know what? When we were talking about surprise teams, we should have added Seattle to the list. I mean, this is vintage Pete Carroll, what he's doing right now with this team. Low expectations, all kinds of questions with his quarterback. And here comes Pete Carroll, the ultimate motivator, the ultimate positive, good vibe type of coach, molding this kind of ragtag, young, inexperienced roster with a mix of some veteran guys into suddenly a team that looks like it maybe has a chance to come out of that division. I think it's still, the jury is still out if this team, guys, can maintain this contention in that division as we get into 10, 11, 12 weeks into the season. But for right now, if you're a fan of the Seattle Seahawks, man, just enjoy this moment, enjoy what Pete Carroll's doing. To see Geno Smith's renaissance at this stage of his career with everything that guy has been through, a lot of it self-inflicted, let's face it, with some of the decisions he made during his time in New York with the Jets and then the Giants, has been really cool to see. And I've been a huge Pete Carroll fan for a number of years. So to see what he's doing with this team has been very, very, very entertaining and fascinating on so many levels.
Should be interesting to see what happens the rest of the season. Now, Spiro, let's switch gears and talk the hard. Let's talk some NBA. I know we're only like 2 or 3 games in for some of these teams. But, who do you think are their favorites? Is it the usual suspects, Boston, Philly, Golden State, the Clippers? Is there going to be some surprises? And what about our Bulls? Can the Bulls be up there and challenge in the East? I say that very slightly, though.
I think, Lakeena at full strength, yes. I think the injuries that they've had at point guard make it a little bit difficult. But, they had an impressive win first week of the season. It's so early to tell. Chicago would not be one of my teams that I think, maybe they compete for one of the final couple of playoff spots. I just think the East is so deep. It's so tough now to become a playoff team. And then even with the play-in tournament, it's made those last few spots, I think, more interesting as we get later into the season. But we're talking about the East now, guys, like we used to talk about the West, over the last decade. That's how good the Eastern Conference has become. Atlanta had the down year. They look like they're going to be right back into the mix as a contender in the East this year. I love the moves that Cleveland made. They look like they're for real. Brooklyn, I think we all expected them to bounce back with the delayed debut of Ben Simmons. Looks like they're going to be a little bit of a work in progress. But yes, to answer your question in the East, I think usual suspects, Celtics, Milwaukee, I think Atlanta, I do expect Brooklyn will be there before the end. Miami, a little bit of a slow start, but you've got Toronto, who's made some really good moves. I know Philly's off to a pretty horrific start. Fully expect them to figure it out. But, we just named like 6 or 7 teams that have a legitimate chance to maybe challenge the Celtics and the Bucks at the top of that conference for East Conference supremacy. So it remains to be seen. In the West, I love what the Clippers have done. I know they took one on the chin last night against Phoenix, but to me, the biggest team aside from the Clippers and aside from all the usual suspects in the West is Denver. With the injuries that they've had, I thought what the Nuggets did last year without Jamal Murray and without Michael Porter Jr. For basically the entire year, to have the season that they had was just incredible to watch. Testament to certainly Jokic's greatness as the 2-time MVP and Michael Malone and his staff. I thought Michael Malone was as good a coach last year, all things considered, that we had in the league. And so I think now you add those two players. It's certainly going to take time for Jamal Murray to get his feet under him and to find his rhythm. But when he does, and you add him to Jokic into what they had, and then throw in Michael Porter Jr., that's going to be a really tough team to contend with. And let's also not forget about New Orleans. I know that they had a couple injuries last night. Looks like Ingram and Zion's injuries are not serious, which is great news for them and for the league. I think the Pelicans are going to take the next step and really fight to try to maybe get into those top 4 slots in the West.
Last moment or two with Spero Dedes of CBS and Turner Sports. He's hanging out with us on Second City Sports. We're live and live in color on Sports Zone Chicago. Sid, Lakeena hanging out here with you. Spero, you choose to answer my next question about the New Orleans Pelicans. I really like them this year, especially if Zion can stay healthy. But I want to ask you about the Los Angeles Lakers. They lost a tough one at home to the Portland Trail Blazers yesterday, thanks to Damian Lillard. The Lakers are now 0-3. Do you think they'll get the situation turned around? Do you see a couple of trades down the road? Or do you think they can ride the ship and perhaps participate in the play-in tournament at the end of the year?
The Lakers are in a tough spot, guys. They really are. You look at how they've performed these first 3 games, and you almost have to say you're not surprised. I mean, it's a poorly constructed roster. I don't think there's any other way to describe it. I think you've got 2 great players in LeBron and Anthony Davis. LeBron, arguably the greatest player, not only of his generation, maybe of all time. I think you've got a motivated Anthony Davis, which certainly bodes well. I think he's going to have a really good year if, of course, he can stay healthy. Mm-hmm. But beyond that, it's just not a very well put together roster. I watched them almost their full first 2 games, and I just kept thinking, boy, where are the shooters? Who are the 3-point shooters that you're putting around AD and LeBron? They're just not there. And then you throw in the Russell Westbrook situation, which I think has been really ugly, and I think it's only going to get uglier. Already we're hearing comments and things out of Russ's camp. I know this has been a really frustrating situation for him. You've got a guy who has had a legendary career, averaging triple doubles and doing things that we had never seen in this sport, or at least thought we'd never see again. I think he deserves his due. I think it's easy to see why a guy like Russ could be in his feelings a little bit, as Darvin Ham said last night after the game, because he's a proud player who deserves respect, and he's not getting it right now because he's played so poorly, or at least has shot the ball poorly over the last season plus with this team. And when you have that contract hanging over your head like he does of $44, $45 million per season, whatever it is, with that is going to come expectations that are probably not realistic, especially for a guy like Russ at this stage of his career. So I think the main thing, priority 1, 2, and 3 for Rob Pelinka and for that front office is figuring out what to do about Russ. I don't think there's any doubt it's not going to work. I don't think Russ would accept a move to the bench. He was already complaining about his hamstring tightening up on him after coming off the bench that first game. And so I don't think that's a viable solution. And I just don't know what you do. Teams know that they're desperate. I think the Lakers would have to take 50 cents on the dollar in any potential move. But it's almost to the point now where it's going to become so toxic that you almost have to take the loss, cut your losses, and move on and see if that new kind of reincarnation of whatever group is left can become the team that you hope can maybe sneak into one of those last playoff spots.
Last question for me, Spero. Now, Philly's kind of in that, not like, the roster's a little bit better, but they're 0-3. They had a couple of tough losses. Harden and, Doc Rivers, you wonder if this kind of like his last stand. So where do you see Philadelphia? Can they finish near the top of the East like some of us thought they would?
I do, and I have to say, I really liked what they did in the offseason. I'm way less concerned about Philly than I am about the Lakers. I don't think there's any doubt. I think this is a team that could absolutely contend in the East. But I think they have to tweak some things. And to me, if I'm Doc Rivers at this point, and I think the world of Doc, I think he's always been one of the top coaches in the league. I think that they really have to change their offensive approach, because I think right now, even James Harden, who I think is playing really well, the first 3 games of the season. For some reason, the dynamic between Harden and Embiid is just not, there's no cohesion. It almost seems like they're taking turns playing and doing their thing. There's no real kind of intermeshing of their games. And if I'm Doc Rivers right now, I start to play more through Tyrese Maxey. I really do. I love the player that Maxey's becoming. Again, I'm not breaking any ground here, going out on a limb. This guy clearly is one of the ascending players in the league. And I think that the way that the league is constructed now, with up-tempo speed being so difficult for teams to contend with, I think they need to play through Maxey more. And I think he'll then open up the floor for a guy like Harden. Certainly will open things up for Embiid, who garners so much attention. And then you throw in Tobias Harris. I love the DeAnthony Melton acquisition in the offseason. And you got shooters. You got guys like Niang. You guys got guys who can step out and stretch out a defense. Certainly Harden when his shot's falling. So I think with a few tweaks, I think the Sixers will be the team that we all expect them to be by the end of the season.
All right, that's been Spero Dedes of CBS and Turner Sports. He does a great job calling both leagues, the NFL and the NBA. He also does college hoops for CBS as well. Spero, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us today on Second City Sports. When can we expect to hear from you and see you next?
I will be on the NBA call this Thursday on NBA TV for Golden State and Miami. So we're looking forward to that with Grant Hill. With Grant Hill and Dennis Scott. We'll be up in San Francisco on Thursday.
Nice. Okay. That should be a fun one.
Yeah. Can't wait. Can't wait.
All right.
Always good to be with you guys, Sid and Lakeena, and wish you guys the best, and hopefully we'll do it again soon.
Yeah, I'll say hopefully next time we can see that handsome face of yours.
Yes, I'll have a new computer with a working video camera next time. All
right. Well, we'll take your word for it. Thank you so much, Spero. Again, we can't wait to see the rest of the NBA season, NFL season, and the college hoops too is starting in a few weeks too. It comes out quick, my goodness. But
it's all guys, just around the corner. Can't wait.
Same here. You stay safe, and then we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
All right, thank you, Spero.
Oh boy, Sid.
Right, once again, that was Spero Dedes of CBS and Turner Sports. He does NBA, college football, and the NFL. Real quick, Lakeena, before we head out, congratulations to new Blackhawks head coach Luke Richardson. We're doing that hockey. They beat the Seattle Kraken yesterday 5-4 in comeback fashion. I know he'll also Eddie Olczyk's return to Chicago. He's now Seattle Kraken broadcaster. I know it wasn't a big deal made of it, but I made a big deal of it. Go to my Twitter and you see what I tweeted. But congratulations to the Blackhawks. They have a tough game tomorrow at home against the Florida Panthers. But right now they're 3-2. Who'd have thunk it without a starting goalie?
And they scored like 3 shorthanded goals. They have to score 3 shorts in those last couple of games. I mean, it's crazy. But I know some, Mark Lazarus, of course, who covers the Hawks and NHL for the Athletic, said that they're going to do like a major league kind of thing where Kyle Davidson. But I think they like him better than the Indians. Then Indians like that owner, that silly owner. But but I don't know if it's going to come to that. But yeah, I think we should just enjoy the ride. I mean, we'll probably they'll probably fall back to earth a little bit. But so far, look, their young guys have stepped up. Kaner's doing his thing. So look, so far they've actually been pretty entertaining to watch.
Yeah, they won one more game than the Bears. Just saying. And the Bulls. But the Bulls will turn it around, so they won't be the Bulls won't be the butt of that joke. But as far as the Bears, we'll see what happens tonight against the New England Patriots on the road in Foxborough for Monday Night Football. All right, let's get up out of here because I am hungry. I need to refresh.
So do I, especially at that interview we did with Spero. So you can follow me at Keena McGee on the Twitter and at Keena_McGee on the IG.
You can follow your Shirley Sydney Brown on the Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, that's SidKid80, SIDKID80, SIDKID80. Make sure you download the Sports on Chicago app wherever you get your apps. Follow Sports on Chicago on all social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Catch our podcast at War on Anchor. We are available on all podcast platforms, including our iHeartRadio app. And make sure you give War Media a follow at WARR Media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. And thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
Don't forget to catch Second City Sports every Monday, every Friday from noon to 2 p.m. live in 11 color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. One more again, as you young folks would say. Catch Second City Sports live in 11 color every Monday, every Friday from noon to 2 p.m. Central Standard Time right here on Sports Zone Chicago.
And of course, don't forget, we're also on Roku TV.
Roku!
Yeah, you just go, whatever device you got. Not even, you don't even need a Roku device. Just, go on your smartphone, smart TV, on your computer, whatever device you got, type in Sports Zone Chicago on your local apps, on your app store, on your operating system. And, it's right there. Sports Zone Chicago, of course, Sean and Maya, What's Up Cuz, the Smoke Fellas. I think they're on tonight, like during the game. They're doing a special Bears preview. I'm talking about, What's Up Cuz I think they're doing, or was it the Smoke Fellas? The Smoke Fellas, I think it's tonight, right?
I think so.
I was like kicking the mix up. But yeah, they'll whoever is they'll have the Bears and such. I'm sure they're gonna have a Bears Patriots preview during the game. They'll probably give you not necessarily play, but also updates. So make sure you guys check out their show tonight. I believe it's 6:00.
Yep.
All right. Again, special thank you to Spero Dedes for joining us today here. And look, that's what we do here. We get you some of the best guests from some of the best in the business. So, and he's one of them. So, make sure you guys check him out on Thursday against that Golden State game. That should be a lot of fun.
On NBA TV. Yep. Miami Golden State on NBA TV at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time.
Yeah, it could be a preview of the finals. Maybe.
You never know.
You never know in this long season. But even so, make sure you check him out there. Enjoy the Bears Patriots game. Hopefully, they can keep it close. Well, yeah, the Manning cast too. Yeah, it might be the more entertaining part of the Manning cast. But enjoy all the NBA and stuff too. All great. Also too. We'll talk more World Series probably on Friday since it doesn't start until Friday night. But even still, enjoy the games, everybody, this week, and stay cool out there. Well, actually, stay warm because they're going to be falling back to earth here too with the temperatures. But
yes.
For Sid, I'm Lakeena and Sid, NCAA Sports on Sports Zone Chicago, and have a safe week. If you're not gonna get vaccinated, wash your hands. Just be good to each other. That's about it. And we'll see you Friday.
Doubles, holla.